Hello and welcome to Shauns Take, brought to you by the Keystone Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Jim and Shaun.
Hello and welcome to Shauns Take, brought to you by the Keystone Sports Network. I'm Jim Galante. He is Shaun Gold. Shaun, last week of the season, it's rivalry week. Boy, this year went by fast.
It did, didn't it, Jim? And it was no short of chaos. I think we could probably say that every single year, but this year, I mean, Clemson, Penn State, Texas, all top 5 to begin the year, all out of the top 25 at one point. It has been quite the ride in college football.
It really has. As you said, every year there's going to be some teams that excel, others that disappoint us. I think being here as a Penn State person, it hit a little bit closer to home. It's amazing, though, how that team went from number 2 in the country going into the big whiteout game against Oregon. And 2 months later, they had 6 losses. They had fired their coach. And James Franklin, now the head man at Virginia Tech, and he's now pilfering staff. He's trying to take away commits. It's amazing how quickly things turn.
It is. There is no shortage of, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this properly, but there's not a very long timeline that you get in college football. The second one thing happens, the next thing is already in the making. That's exactly what we saw at Penn State this year. A decision was made for Franklin to be out. He already had calls waiting for him to get the new job, get the recruits to switch over. And like you said, already pilfering staff and everything. It's a fast-moving industry, especially with transfer portal and NIL, how that's evolved, and it's only going to continue to move faster and faster as the years go on.
You know what? And no matter how much chaos there is, like there was at Penn State, just wait a week and there'll be another chaotic story. Then we had LSU with their coaching situation, lawsuits going back and forth, absolute insanity. You can't top that. Till Lane Kiffin says, hold my beer. You got Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss with a playoff team, maybe the best team in Ole Miss history, and they might lose their head coach before they hit the playoffs.
Just an insane time, and nobody's job is safe. And even the people whose job should be safe, they're looking for a different job. Like Lane Kiffin has 100% job security there at Ole Miss, and you'd think, wow, it couldn't get any better than this, until he looks at a Florida program and says, I might rather be there, even though it's a significantly worse team than the one I'm coaching right now.
Well, here's the bottom line, though. The bottom line is the bottom line. It's not so much that Florida's a better situation. They're just offering more money, Shaun. That's what makes the world go round. All right, despite all of that, despite all the stories, we've got picks to make, Shaun, and it is rivalry week. A lot of great rivalry games across the country. A lot of great rivalry games on our board. Let's start with an interesting one, and that is the interstate battle. Georgia, they are at Georgia Tech. Georgia is a 14.5-point favorite in this one.
You know, Jim, a couple weeks ago, this seemed like it had just the writing on the wall to be just a perfect matchup here, where Georgia Tech would be a top 10 team going into this matchup, and they have just unraveled the past couple weeks. They do not look like the same team that they were for the first 8 weeks of the season, when they were just steamrolling people and kind of given, hey, Georgia Tech is here to be a true player all of a sudden out of nowhere. The past couple of years they were building up. Seemed like this was their year, and then a couple really bad losses for the program. They're kind of in, dropping way down in the rankings, and everything's happened here. So a couple weeks ago, I would have said, this probably would have been a touchdown spread, and I would have been pretty inclined to say, hey, Georgia Tech might have some magic with them. The spread's obviously grown a ton, and for good reasons. Georgia is just steamrolling. Both teams are going in opposite directions, but it is rivalry week. At first, I thought I would say, hey, I think Georgia is just going to put the hammer down and get past this, but 14.5 is an interesting number here. I think Georgia Tech is going to show up. They're going to play hard, and I think they can try to control the clock enough to make this a competitive game. And just like we saw last year, Michigan, Ohio State, everybody is on upset alert when you go play a rival. And I think Georgia Tech is going to have one last hurrah in them this season. I don't think they're going to pull off the upset and win the game, but I do think it can be close in the fourth quarter, leading to a cover for Georgia Tech.
I follow your line of thinking, and my first instinct was to go with Georgia Tech. Then I looked, not only, Shaun, have they had two disappointing losses in the last 3 weeks, their one win, they barely escaped BC. This is a Georgia Tech team going in the wrong direction. Their coach, who was a hot name for a lot of bigger jobs, he may have coached himself out of those bigger jobs with his team's performance. As we always talk about, I hate that extra half point. But you know what? Georgia is on a roll. They're going in a different direction than Georgia Tech. I'm going with the Bulldogs in this one. All right, another interstate rivalry. This one an in-conference game. This is the undefeated Texas A&M Aggies. They are at Texas. A&M, a 2.5-point favorite in this one.
Well, what a scare A&M had last week. I think it was 31-3, and they win that game. I mean, just one of the most improbable and impressive comebacks we've seen, probably not just this year, but in college football history, if you were to really dive into, the point margin they overcame. In this one, Jim, though, I think Texas is going to go in and win this game. I think that, they've put a lot of their early season struggles behind them. They're looking like a much better team. I still don't think they're going to sneak into the playoffs. Maybe a win here can impress enough people to get them in on the last seed or something, but I'm not expecting Texas Longhorns to be in the playoffs. But I do think they're going to put together a very good performance against A&M this week and show that, hey, when we're both at our best, we're still the better team here despite our record. So give me the Texas Longhorns for the upset in this one, Jim.
I have Texas also in this one, Shaun, because I looked at Texas A&M. They had a 1-point win, I believe it was, against Notre Dame really early in the year, out of conference, of course. And this is the issue with these large conferences. There's such a disparity in schedules within the same conference. Mm-hmm. So A&M, they had a particularly easy schedule for Southeast Conference. Texas, on the other hand, not quite the same. Out of conference, they had Ohio State. You mentioned, do they have an outside shot of making the playoffs? Outside of the Paul Feinbaum world, no, they do not. Okay, 3 losses. Losses do matter. I think Texas has eliminated themselves with that third loss. I saw someone say, well, what if they had scheduled Ohio instead of Ohio State out of conference? Okay, fine. I hear it. But they did play Ohio State. And guess what? That game counts. Mm-hmm. And this argument that a tough out of conference game shouldn't count against you. Well, you have disparities in schedule also within the conference. So I don't want to hear that argument. With all of that said, I think Texas is going to win this one. They don't even need the 2.5 points. I think they're going to have the outright win in this one, Shaun. All right. Speaking of rivals, we've got Ohio State at Michigan. Michigan has won this matchup, 4 years in a row? And it's not reflected in this spread, though. Ohio State, a 9.5-point favorite.
Well, Jim, streaks are always meant to come to an end here. And I guess that doesn't mean that Ohio State would cover, because 9.5 is still a sizable spread. But I was talking to somebody else the other day. I think it's Ohio State right here, and there's a significant drop-off between the rest of the country. I just don't see how anybody hangs with Ohio State. And, Michigan, look, they're going to play tough just like they did last year with the upset. But we're not going to see history repeat itself in that mark right there. I just don't know how Michigan's going to put up any points against this Ohio State defense. I'm confident Ohio State can get to, 21, 28 points in this game. I don't see Michigan getting above 10 points. So with how good this Ohio State defense is, I'm just worried that even if it's a close competitive game, Michigan's simply just not going to score enough. 17, it could be 17-7, turns into 24-7 in the fourth quarter. That's an Ohio State cover right there. So give me the Buckeyes to cover in this one, Jim.
Interesting that you were looking at Ohio State's defense. So was I, Shaun. They've allowed no more than 16 points in a game all season. Their last 7 games, they've scored at least 34 themselves, okay? This is a team that is playing well on both sides of the ball. They put up points. They have way more talent. And you know what? I made this same prediction a year ago that we can't see Ohio State lose again. Eventually, the talent will win out. I'm saying it again. I was wrong last year. I don't think I'm wrong again, though. I look for Ohio State to actually win this one big, Shaun. I really think that's going to be the case. Give me the Buckeyes. All right, another interstate rivalry. This is Vanderbilt at Tennessee. Tennessee is a 2.5-point favorite in this one, Shaun. Who do you like?
Unfortunately, I'm going to sit here and say I think Tennessee covers this one, Jim. Vanderbilt was such a great story in college football, kind of reflective of Georgia Tech, but a better version because Vandy didn't have quite the drop-off. But this just isn't the same team. The energy's not the same anymore for Vanderbilt after their couple losses. I think they're done. I think Tennessee's going to get a win. 2.5 points right there is saying that Vegas thinks Tennessee is the better team in this matchup. I'm listening to that spread here. I'm not going to overcomplicate it. I think Tennessee walks away with the win and covers that 2.5-point spread.
I'm with you on this. And looking at it, Tennessee has 3 losses. Those losses were to Georgia by 3 points, Oklahoma, a very good Oklahoma team, by 6 points. That was a great game. And they also lost to Alabama. That's 3 tough teams to lose to. This isn't your standard run-of-the-mill 3-loss team. Vanderbilt, by the way, 2 losses. Interestingly enough, Shaun, they were at Alabama and at Texas. This week, they're at Tennessee. I'm going with the Volunteers also in this one. All right, our final game, it's those raging Penn State Nittany Lions, 2 wins in a row, Shaun. And if they could win this game, they'll be at 500 and qualify for a bowl game. It's reflected in the spread. Penn State, a 13.5-point favorite on the road at Rutgers.
I really don't think that Rutgers is a bad team by any means. They've had competitive games. They've shown flashes. But, Jim, we're seeing Penn State now. I won't say playing like the number 2 team in the country again, but they're genuinely playing like a top 15, top 20 team in the country right now. These past couple weeks have been huge for this team. The players have really rallied. You just see a different energy compared to the UCLA loss, the Northwestern loss. This is a very different team than those teams that were playing in those 2 weeks. This is a team that's confident, that's playing well, that's clicking. And most importantly, it just seems like they're finally having fun again on the field. If you watch their last game, the energy was just different than what it had been, 3 weeks prior. So I think Penn State is clearly a better team. I think this spread, is more reflective of what it would have been if they played each other in week 2 of the season versus, right after UCLA and Northwestern. So I like Penn State to cover this one and end the year on a really high note.
I do too, Shaun. I was there for the Penn State-Nebraska game. You said maybe not a top 2 team, but maybe a top 20 team, top 50. That looked like a top 5 team dismantling Nebraska. And it's nice to talk about there was energy and enthusiasm and all those intangibles. That's all fine and good. But I'll talk tangibles. The play calling was much better. The quarterback play was better. Every aspect of the game was different, was better. It was what Penn State fans expected to see from the start of the season, Shaun. We're finally getting to see it. I think that even at 13.5 points, I'm going with the Nittany Lions also in this one. All right, Shaun, that's it for our regular season wrap-up. Fingers crossed, as always, for a big week. Thank you all for joining us. Make sure you tune in again next week for Shauns Take.
Keystone Sports Network.